Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Peter Wade, the Chairman of Mineral Resources Board, and I welcome you here today for the 15th Annual General Meeting of Mineral Resources following our ASX listing in 2006. 2020 has been an extraordinary year, like no other in our lifetime. It's changed the way we live, the way we work, and even the way we connect, as can be seen by today's meeting. Whilst I'm in Sydney, we're very fortunate to be able to hold an in-person AGM in Perth. There are not many places around the world that could do so safely, and Western Australia is the envy for many. I would like to introduce the board and management who join us today. Our Managing Director, Chris Ellison, is joined by his fellow directors, Kelvin Flynn and Jameson Clements. I also welcome Zizi, who joins us today from Hong Kong. And I'm also pleased to introduce to you Susie Corlett, who is expected to join the board in January as an independent non-executive director. She also joins us from Sydney, so welcome to everyone. Also in Perth today is Mark Wilson, supporting Chris. Mark is our Chief Financial Officer and Company Secretary. In the audience, we also have in attendance Tutu Fong from RSM, our auditors, Nicole Lewis from Computershare, who is here to oversee the polling process. And we also have, again, the local representatives of the Australian Shareholders Association, Jeff and Alan, who provide a great sounding board on investor comments to our company. If you are in attendance in Perth, can I ask that you please ensure your mobile device is on silent? And because safety is paramount, before we begin, our venue hosts will run through a few housekeeping matters.
Hello and welcome to Mineral Resources Park, the fantastic home of the West Coast Eagles. I'm the Facilities Manager here. So just a few housekeeping matters. Directions to the restroom, they're just out the door to your right and again around the corner. If there is a need for an evacuation, as always, please keep calm. Await instructions from the automated system and the wardens when they arrive. If you are asked to evacuate, please evacuate via the stairs only, out the front door, down the ramps and onto the community oval. If you have mobility requirements, please meet at the lift where a warden will take you down to the main oval and across away from the building. And if you have any lost property, please see reception. I hope you enjoy your day. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Now, before we begin the formal business of the meeting, I'd like to invite Frida Ogilvie to perform a welcome to country, after which I will outline the meeting's procedures.
Thank you for inviting me today, and I'm thrilled to be here. I don't know that I know all that much about mineral resources, but I tell you what, I've gone on that computer a number of times and checked things out, and then getting the booklets today, it's been a good read for me in looking at governance. I'm a board director for Rua Community Services here in Perth, and I quite enjoy that role. I'm learning more and more about finances. I'm not a finance person. I'm a teacher. I'm a principal. And so, yes, many things that you learn along the road as you grow older. But I want to say I'm purple and I'm passionate. And I won't ever change. I grew up in Fremantle and that's my home and I love it. It's the only place in the world. I've been overseas and checked those places out, nothing like home. And I guess I'm one of those Noongar people who travelled overseas, but I was so glad to get back home again. Kaya Wanju, hello and welcome. Ngan Wanju, Jirp Jirp, Ngan Wanging, Mamin Yurt. I acknowledge my elders past, present and emerging, from the past, the present and the future. I acknowledge the elders, my teachers and my leaders. They are the archives, libraries and keepers of the Noongar stories of the Whadjuk people. We are here to celebrate your achievements and success in our country. Burra Nunak Wanging, Burra Nunak Nyining, Karajan Balap. Later you will talk, read, listen and learn. Stories, news, work ethics, and build a new world. That's what I've done. That world of responsibility, respect, and reconciliation. Nyin Buja, Murich, Karajan Buja. You will learn more about knowledge of sight, science, and cosmology of our dreaming. and visit sites of significance like the Warrigal, which formed the landscape, mainly the Derbil Yerrigan, or the river, where it came up from Walyalup and made its way inland. The Derbil Yerrigan, which are small streams, the Belia River, the Swan, Derbil Narra, which is Coburn Sound, Wadjamup, which is Rottnest Island, and Walyalup, which is Fremantle, and we're getting to use that name a lot more often now. Nganjurup Mamin Yok Gurlangas Karijan Wangin Wira Nija Murich. Our knowledge and understanding of Noongar reflects a deep spiritual and physical connection to the land, places of significance, the universe as a holistic cosmology and epistemology. We don't look at things in isolation, it's all one. Yay Yalija, Jinan Karli Kubari, Yurn, Naman, Nyan Mangab, Buddha, we're calling Nija. Over there on the green grass, the bobtail roams, and like the flight of the boomerang, the magpie flies across the river and feeds on the sweetness of the banksia leaves. Jinan, Mumbaki, Kiep Wurl, Nijanganch, Burung, Ngan Buja, Ngarlak Buja. Look up and down the land to where the river meets the horizon. Look at the sun which warms the land and nourishes and encourages growth. Nija Buddha Nunuk, Bulyaka. Don't forget to look after yourself, your social and emotional well-being, and make new friends. Build your networks and challenge yourself. Nijangan Buja, this is my land. Nijanunuk Buja, this is your land. Nijangaluk Buja, this is our land. Ngarlak Kulin, we're Balap Gedlap, Benang Warak Kul. That's enough for now, and I will see you later on. And thank you very much for the invitation to join you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Freda. I feel very welcoming to our land. In terms of formalities, I can advise that all exists, and I declare the meeting open. The notice of meeting is taken as read. In terms of the agenda for today, I will address the formal proceedings of this meeting and then invite our Managing Director, Chris Ellison, to provide a review of the financial year 20 results, including how we managed the COVID-19 pandemic, and outline our growth strategy for the next decade and beyond. As always, Chris will welcome questions from shareholders at the end of the presentation. Now, today's meeting is what is termed a hybrid AGM, meaning it is being held in person and online via Lumi platform. This allows shareholders, proxies and guests to attend the meeting virtually by webcast. In addition, shareholders and proxies are able to ask questions and submit votes online. We've provided to the ASX and to our shareholders a copy of the annual report, which includes the director's report, the financial report, and the auditor's report. The company secretary has advised me that we received a few questions ahead of the meeting. If the questions relate to the annual financial report, I will address these along the way, along with any other questions that may be raised in this meeting during the conduct of the formal business. For questions that relate to matters outside the annual report and the formal business of this meeting, the Managing Director will address them following his presentation. I now lay these reports before the meeting. And if you haven't already done so, I commend the annual report to you as a great read. It's got superb photography, and that depicts very vividly your company's operations. Now on slide 1, this is shows the question process and how to ask a question via Lumi. If you have any questions, please submit these via the online portal or by raising your green or yellow shareholder card. As mentioned, Tutu Fong, our audit partner from RSM, is in attendance today, and questions can be addressed to him also. For those that are joining us online, questions can be submitted at any time. To ask a question, press on the speech bubble icon. This will open a new screen. At the bottom of that screen, there is a section for you to type your question. Once you have finished typing, please hit the arrow symbol to send. Please note that while you can submit questions from now on, I will not address them until the relevant time in the meeting. Please also note that your questions may be moderated, or if we have multiple questions on one topic, amalgamated together. Finally, while we'll try to address all questions, due to time constraints, that may not be possible. For those of you in the room, if you have a question, raise your green or yellow attendance card at the relevant time in the meeting. Voting today will be conducted by way of poll on all items of business. In order to provide you with enough time to vote, I'll shortly open voting for all resolutions. Slide 2 now shows the voting process via Lumi. At that time, if you're eligible to vote at the meeting, a new polling icon will appear on the Lumi platform. Selecting this icon will bring up a list of resolutions and present you with voting options. To cast your vote, simply select one of the options. There is no need to hit a submit or enter button, as the vote is automatically recorded. You do, however, have the ability to change your vote up until the time I declare voting closed. So I now declare voting open on all items of business. If you're voting online, the polling icon will soon appear, and please submit your votes at any time. If you are voting in person here at the meeting, please vote either via the Lumi app or raise your green card to call for a paper poll card, which will be available to complete. Once you've completed the poll card, please raise your green card again, and Computershare will call around to collect and process it. I'll give you notice before I move to closure of the voting. As mentioned, this is the voting of Mineral Resources shareholders, and as such, only shareholders, their appointed proxies or corporate representatives are entitled to make comments, ask questions, or vote. All other attendees are very welcome as observers. I'll leave the polling open while we discuss the resolutions, and we'll provide you with a warning before we close. Please feel free to vote at any time during the Q&A. If we now go on to commence Resolution 1, which is the adoption of the Remuneration Report. This is the first motion for consideration today. It's the adoption of the Remuneration Report. The Corporations Act requires that a resolution to adopt the Remuneration Report be put to a vote. However, the resolution is advisory only and non-binding. All key management personnel and their close related parties are excluded from voting on the motion to hold a spill meeting. For those unfamiliar with the law relating to votes on the Remuneration Report, let me quickly summarise the process for you. If more than 25% of the votes are against the adoption of the Remuneration Report, the company will receive a first strike. This will prompt a requirement that the Remuneration Report for the following year must explain how comments received from shareholders were addressed, and if not, why not. At the following year's AGM, more than 25% of the votes are against the Remuneration Report. The company will incur a second strike. If this occurs, the meeting must include a motion to hold a spill meeting within 90 days. If at the spill meeting, the motion to spill the board is passed, all directors, excluding the managing director, who are in office when the company's directors' report, as included in the company's 2020 annual financial report, was approved, will vacate the office and may stand for re-election at the spill meeting, and a new board will be elected by shareholders. The Remuneration Committee and the wider Board of Directors were pleased with the shareholder support which saw the resolution to adopt the 2019 financial year Remuneration Report passed. This year, we sought to build on that support and implemented the changes for financial year 20 that were foreshadowed in the financial 19 Remuneration Report. These include changes to remuneration structure for both the Managing Director and key management personnel, and our short and long-term incentive structures. Financial year 20 has been an exceptional year for the company. It has a record result for the company and its shareholders across all fields. The result is more exceptional given it was delivered despite the unprecedented business conditions created by the COVID-19 pandemic. Due to the actions of management, Mineral Resources were able to not only maintain operations and continue to meet customer expectations, but the company was able to offer vital assistance to others in our sector. In a period where redundancies and job uncertainty have been widespread, not one Mineral Resources position has been made redundant. We've expanded our workforce during the past 6 months. In such circumstances, the Remuneration Committee is pleased that the incentive program in place has assisted in delivering outstanding results for shareholders. Now, we expect that we will continue to make changes in the coming years to reflect best practices in the industry and ensure an appropriate focus on sustainable long-term performance in accordance with our business strategy and in industry pressures, while reflecting the need for simplicity, transparency, governance and fairness, and responding to investor feedback. On the screen now, you'll see the details of the proxy votes cast on Resolution 1. It's very pleasing to see the positive response for. So are there any questions or comments on this item? No? Well, thank you.
Yes.
As there are no further items.
Peter. Good morning, Peter.
Sorry.
Jeff Sherwin.
Good morning.
Jeff Sherwin, Australian Shareholders Association. Once again, representing 56 shareholders here today, holding proxies for those retail shareholders whom we represent. So I'd like to thank the company for the cooperation and meetings and interchange of correspondence relating to today's resolutions, and that's as in previous years has been forthcoming and very cooperative. I'd just like to say that the company over the last few years has had several iterations of the remuneration report. I think it's fair to say, and it's fair to say also that some of those we haven't supported in the past. But it appears to us that the company has settled on a broad design, if you like, of the remuneration report that meets the vast majority of our objectives when we look for the alignment of shareholder and corporate interests. And I congratulate the Remuneration Committee on coming to what we think anyway is a good outcome. So our recommendation is to shareholders listening or present here today, and we will be voting our undirected sort of proxies in favour of the remuneration report. And we'll support all the other resolutions. We wouldn't plan to make other comments unless some discussion comes forward which sort of looks for a comment from us, but otherwise we'll vote in favour of all the resolutions here today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Jeff. Very much appreciated. Are there any other questions? If there are no other questions, we'll shortly move on to the next resolution. If you have not done so, please enter your votes or raise your polling card for resolution number 1. Thank you for that. We're just waiting for Computershare to collect all the votes. Thank you. Since I have an interest in the next resolution, I will now hand over to our lead non-executive director, James McClements, to table that resolution. Thank you, James.
Welcome, everybody. So we're going to deal with Resolution 2, re-election of Director Mr. Peter Wade. The resolution is to consider, and if thought fit, to pass, with or without amendment, the following resolution as an ordinary resolution. That for the purpose of Clause 13.2 of the Constitution, ASX Listing Rule 14.5, and for all other purposes, Mr. Peter Wade, being a director of the company, retires by rotation and being eligible, be re-elected as a director. If I may, I'll just say a few comments about Peter in support of his re-election. He served as a director since 27th of February 2006 and was last re-elected on the 22nd of November 2018. Peter was managing director of the group from 2006 through to his retirement from that position in 2012, at which stage he became non-executive chairman. Due to Peter's period of employment with the group and general length of his association with the group, Peter is not considered to be an independent director. Peter's 46 plus years of experience in mining and infrastructure services has provided invaluable guidance and support to Chris and his team that since listing has led to an annual average return on investment growth of 27%, total shareholder growth of 27% per annum, and a dividend paid every 6 months. It's a great track record that few other companies have achieved and demonstrates a clear focus on shareholder value creation for the long term. The relationship that Peter has developed over the years with Chris and the senior management team has created an environment of constructive conversation where information flows freely, ensures that the board has information required to ensure effective decision making. And as a board member, I fully support that position and enjoy Peter's role as chair of the board. The board actively and strongly encourages the support for re-election of Peter Wade and recommends that shareholders vote in favour of Resolution 2. The details of the proxy votes cast on Resolution 2 are now displayed on the screen. Are there any questions on this item? Okay, as there are no further questions, we'll shortly move on to the next resolution. If you have not already done so, please enter your votes or raise your polling card for Resolution 2. While you're doing that, I'll hand back to Peter. Thank you.
Thanks, James. And I want to thank the shareholders for their continued support and trust. I think I can proceed now straight through to resolution number 3, and that's the re-election of Director Mr. James McClements. The resolution states to consider and if thought fit to pass with or without amendment the following resolution as an ordinary resolution. That for the purpose of clause 13.2 of the Constitution, ASX listing rule 14.5, and for all other purposes, Mr. James McClements, being a director of the company, retires by rotation and being eligible, be re-elected as a director. I've had the pleasure of knowing James McClements for quite a while. He joined the board in 2015 as our lead independent non-executive director and was last elected on 22nd November 2018. James is the chair of the Remuneration Committee and a member of the Audit and Risk Committee, and has been instrumental in establishing the dialogue and the discussions and the settlement of the remuneration structure. The Remuneration Committee supports him on that and is appreciative of the fact that following the work that he's done, the resolution number 1 was accepted, being for the remuneration report for this year. To create wealth for shareholders, we task our management with employing the capital entrusted to them to sustain attractive rates of return. That is, exceeding the long-term returns that we achieved elsewhere at comparable levels of risk. The ability to achieve this requires a company to have adequate and effective attraction and retention mechanisms in place to ensure we maintain experienced and competent employees who are capable of innovating to promote growth that leads to attractive long-term rates of return. As chair of the Remuneration Committee, James has taken account of the concerns that our shareholders have raised in previous years regarding remuneration structures. The Remuneration Committee has reviewed these structures, making significant changes to the Managing Director's remuneration, as well as to the key management personnel short-term and long-term incentive structures. Under James' leadership, the Remuneration Committee has built on the support you showed for our remuneration report in 2019 and will ensure that remuneration outcomes continue to reflect and support the company's strategic and financial strength in the short and long-term performance of the business. This will enable us to attract and retain our executive talent which is fundamental to maintaining our track record of creating value for shareholders. The board unanimously supports the re-election of James McClements and recommends that shareholders vote in favour of resolution number 3. The details of the proxy votes cast on resolution 3 are now displayed on the screen for your information. Are there any questions or comments on this item? I can't see any questions, so I'll go on. Since there are no further questions, we'll shortly move on to the next resolution. If you've already not done so, please enter your votes or raise your polling card for resolution number 3. I can go on to resolution number 4 now, which is election of Director, Ms. Susie Corlett. The resolution states, to consider and if thought fit, to pass with or without amendment the following resolution as an ordinary resolution. That, for the purpose of clause 13.3 of the Constitution and for all other purposes, Susie Corlett, being eligible, is to be appointed as a Director of the company with effect from 4th of January 2021. I'm now pleased to be able to hand over to Susie Corlett to speak about her skills and experiences that she brings to the board, and I'm sure you can see where these attributes will add to the board's effectiveness. Thank you, Susie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to speak to my election as an independent, non-executive director of Mineral Resources. Representing your interests is both a great privilege and a real responsibility. By way of background, I've enjoyed an executive career in the mining and mining finance industries. I started as a geologist in underground and open pit mining some 30 years ago in West Australia. Since then, I've been really fortunate to have worked across the full spectrum of the mine development curve, from exploration and discovery, feasibility, construction, operations, to mine closure. My career's been largely focused on complex metallic and polymetallic commodities and precious metals, where margin generation across the entire value chain from pit to port has been paramount. I gained a solid grounding in mining and financial risk working at Macquarie Bank. This involved managing credit risk, asset workouts, and company turnarounds. These years provided an invaluable foundation for funding large mining and infrastructure transactions for Deutsche Bank and the Standard Bank Group. Delivering major capital projects in emerging nations has seen me working on the ground in over 25 countries. Of the many learnings, the importance of listening and working with Indigenous groups and stakeholders to create shared value are learnings that feature heavily in my boardroom contributions today. Safety is in my DNA, and I'm proud to have been a vocal advocate for social and environmental responsibility and diversity throughout my career. I spent the last 10 years of my executive career as an investment director for a global mining private equity firm, where I was lucky to have been involved in generating significant shareholder value through optimizing businesses and delivering organic and inorganic growth. In summary, my executive career has given me the uncommon ability to combine, on one hand, mining technical skills with risk and finance expertise on the other. I'm really pleased to be able to bring this to the boardroom of Mineral Resources during what's a very important time in the company's growth. I currently serve as a non-executive director of ASX-listed Iluka Resources and Aurelia Metals. And in the not-for-profit space, I'm a director of the Foundation of National Parks and Wildlife, and I serve as a trustee of the AusIMM Education Endowment Fund. I relish the opportunity of making a meaningful contribution to the future of this great Australian company, and I thank you for your support for my election.
Thank you, Susie. I think everyone can see why the board selected Susie to join the board. She'll be an outstanding value add to the board, and so I'm pleased that she is standing for election today. Susie's practical geological expertise across a range of commodities, along with her extensive mining and finance experience, will be of great value to Mineral Resources as we continue to grow. Her appointment will broaden, strengthen, and diversify the board's experience in a number of key areas, including strategy and growth, risk management, mergers and acquisitions, and sustainability. The board unanimously supports the election of Susie Corlett and recommends that shareholders vote in favour of resolution number 4. The details of the proxy votes cast on resolution 4 are now displayed on screen. And I'm pleased, and I'm sure Susie is pleased to see the extensive vote for her. I think it's a feather in her cap, and I'm pleased to accept the support that goes with bringing on board Susie, who will be an outstanding director. Are there any questions on this item? No, I'm looking at the audience and I can see that they've all been very impressed by what's been said by Susie as well. And there's none online as well, so I can continue on. Resolution number 5. That's an increase in aggregate fee pool for non-executive directors. The resolution reads, to consider and if thought fit, to pass with or without amendment, the following resolution as an ordinary resolution. That shareholders approve an increase of the maximum total aggregate amount of fees payable to the non-executive directors from $1 million per annum to $2 million per annum, with effect from the 2021 financial year, in accordance with the terms and conditions set in the explanatory statement. Now, the current fee pool limit is $1 million. That was set back in financial year 15, when the company had gross assets of $1.6 billion, the market capitalisation of $1.2 billion at the end of that financial year. Since 2015, the company has increased considerably in size, scale and complexity to have gross assets of $4.6 billion and a market capitalisation of $4 billion at the end of financial year 20. Currently, the board comprises 3 non-executive directors and the chairman. The board has agreed to the need to increase the number of its non-executive directors for expansion of the breadth and depth of board skills to align with the increased size and diversity of the company's business and to better assess increased opportunities for growth. All new non-executive directors appointed will be independent. The proposed changes to the size of the board, which could see 2 to 3 new directors appointed, are expected to be completed next calendar year. The first of these appointments is Susie Corlett, whose appointment effective January 2021 we are pleased to support. The structure of payments to non-executive directors is aligned with the interests of shareholders, as 50% of each director's fee is paid in equity. Non-executive directors are encouraged to hold at least 1 year's worth of fees in Mineral Resources shares. Now, under the current fee arrangements, non-executive directors do not receive additional fees for serving on board committees and have not received an increase in fees since financial year 15. The recent board benchmarking indicates the company's non-executive directors are currently remunerated around the 25th percentile of peer group companies. An increase in the fee pool will enable the company to reward non-executive directors for the additional time and effort associated with chairing and participating in board committees, the work of which has increased dramatically and is expected to continue increasing in line with the growth of the company. Now, the board does not currently intend to utilise the full increased fee pool, but considers the increase to be reasonable and appropriate for the reasons set out above. It will allow for the necessary growth in the size, skills and diversity of the board to deliver the best outcomes for all shareholders. The details of the proxy votes cast on resolution 5 are now displayed on the screen. Are there any questions from the floor? I have one question which has come in. It's from Mr. Quinn King, and I'll read it out to you. It's with great concern you have tabled a resolution to increase the director fee pool to ultimately increase current directorship from 5 to 8. From the ASX announcement on the 30th of October 2020, you said, the board has agreed to the need to increase the number of its non-executive directors. My question is, why have you agreed to the need to increase directors when research clearly shows that smaller boards produce stronger shareholder returns than larger boards? I thank Quinn for the question, but I think it's fairly clear that all boards and companies are different, and there's no one-size-fits-all approach. Now, we don't have a specified number of board positions, but what we do basically is that we consistently review the board structure. We select directors who will add value. We size the board to meet the needs of the board to satisfy shareholders' expectations and outcomes. And we align the board's remuneration with shareholder interests by making 50% of the fee paid in equity. So in essence, all the directors who we appoint are aligned and have a vested interest with all the shareholders. We believe that the increase in board members is reasonable. It's appropriate and aligned with increased size and diversity of the company's business. It will allow for the necessary growth in skills and diversity of the board to deliver the most sustainable outcomes for all shareholders. The board does not currently intend to utilise the full amount of the fee pool. And as I've said, all the non-executive directors' remuneration is aligned with the interests of shareholders. So whilst I thank Quinn for the comment, I do believe that in this case it's appropriate that we appoint further directors to support the ongoing growth and success of the business. Now, that's the only question I've got on the screen. If there are no further questions, we will shortly move on to that resolution. And if you have not already done so, please enter your votes or raise your polling card for resolution number 5. Okay, thank you very much for that. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our discussion on the terms of business. In a couple of minutes, I will close the voting system. Please ensure that you have cast your votes on all resolutions. So I'll now pause to allow you time to finalise votes if you haven't done so. Thank you for that. I now declare voting is closed. The results of these votes will be released to the Australian Securities Exchange later today, and I thank you all for your patience. Before I hand over to your Managing Director, on behalf of the board, I'd like to acknowledge Chris and his team for their extremely quick response to the pandemic. Our response is built around 3 areas: keeping our people safe and well, maintaining safe and reliable operations, and supporting our communities. Chris will speak more to the actions we took, but I do want to recognise the extraordinary efforts from the entire MRL workforce, in particular our operational teams who responded to all the changes we needed to keep our sites safe and our mines operating. I know at times it was not easy, and the board are extremely grateful for each and every member of our Mineral Resources team. I'd also like to thank the board, and I'll say to our shareholders that you should be very proud of the executive team and the board who are there to support you and to add value to your shareholding. As in no further business, this concludes the formal proceedings of the meeting, and I now invite Chris to take you through the activities of this extraordinary year and let him expand on our future growth plans. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter. You're right, it has been an extraordinary year. We've had a whole bunch of things come at us that we never saw coming. But anyway, look, welcome everyone. Thanks, good morning. I'm Chris Ellison. I'm Managing Director of Mineral Resources. I'm here to take you through the year that's been and how we got through that year and how we're going to deal with where we're going in the future. I want to thank Frida for delivering that welcome to country. She's always so elegant the way she does it, and I think she actually connects with some people, which makes a big difference, particularly for the times we're in. I know that she's always going to be purple. I don't want to change that. I'm always going to be black. And I think that's very appropriate with the All Blacks. But my second team, of course, here is Mineral Resources Park. I also acknowledge and respect the custodians of the land, the Whadjuk people and the Noongar Nation, and I'd like to pay my respects as well to past, present and emerging. As I said, it's been an extraordinary year. We started with bushfires. I mean, they really got forgotten extraordinarily quick. We had the COVID reach the shores of Australia around March, and having seen what it had done going through China and going through Europe, we were lucky we were sort of at the tail end, but we reacted very quickly to ensuring that we locked down our people and we made sure they're safe. I mean, by the time we got into April, I mean, we'd completely changed the way that we work. We were changing the way we behaved socially, the way we looked at people. If someone coughed in the street, you'd cross the road. I mean, I don't know anyone recently that's had a cold. I think that hygiene has certainly improved, so there's a lot of good things that have come out of it. There's a long way to go for us, but we're probably right now, we're probably in the best place in the world for to live and to work, to raise a family. I mean, we're probably in one of the safest pieces of dirt on the planet, and I think, look, thanks to Mark McGowan and his team, they've produced probably the best economic and social outcome that anyone could wish for. I mean, for us to be able to do this today, I think is exceptional. It's rare. Obviously, there's a lot of people out there. There's probably about 8% of the population, I believe, that would like to see the borders open. The other 92% of us would like to be able to see us going out for dinner and going and seeing our mums and dads and relations and being able to go to work and make sure that we look after our kids and we educate them. So I encourage Mark McGowan to keep running the place exactly the way he has. Welcome to my fellow board members. Present, Kelvin and James, thanks for everything you've done during the year. It's been another outstanding year, and the skill sets that they bring to us has been exceptional. Peter Wade, my chairman, who's been around the business for a long time, and he knows it extremely well. He may not be an independent chairman, he's actually better than that. He's a chairman that has passion for the business, and he knows exactly how it works from the ground up. Susie, who's sitting in Hong Kong, Zizi is sitting in Hong Kong, and we haven't seen Zizi for some months. Zizi's been incredible help to us. She specialises in commodity, and she understands exactly where to place it around the world. And well done, Susie Corlett, for joining us. And I'm really looking forward to having her skill set come on the board. It's going to be exceptional because Susie not only understands the commercial side of business and the funding side, she understands what's under the ground. She's very clever in geology, and that's going to be a big part of our future over the next 3 to 5 years. So just if some of the shareholders out there are wondering why we lifted our remuneration from $1 to $2 million, it might be worth bearing in mind that, you know, the savings that we have in this company. I mean, we probably bill about $3 billion a year, and it's probably going to be more than that going forward. Our fuel bill that we're trying as hard as we can to reduce, our diesel bill runs about $280 million a year. If I can take 1% off that this year, that's probably 3 times what it costs for my entire board, and the wealth and knowledge they bring to me, you know, it's kind of relative. So the amount that we pay our board is very minimal for the experience that we get, as most boards are, but we have an exceptional board, so thanks everyone. Look, I'm going to run you through quickly through the past year. We've got a little story to show you about how we dealt with COVID. It was something that was probably one of the single most important things this business has ever done in its history, and extremely proud of how our people were able to react to it so quickly. We'll have a quick look at some of the numbers that we produced during the year, which were quite good, and then I'll tell you through the growth of the business and where I want to take it over the next 3 to 5 years. As I said, the extraordinary year we've been through, no one knew what was coming at us. It was unpredictable. The expectation that we were given around March, April, it was the world was going to lose millions of lives. It was almost certain that we were going to have a depression. Based on that, we were looking back at the Great Depression, the Second World War. We had a look at the Spanish flu, and we thought the only thing that we can do, the only thing we need to focus on doing here is making sure that we can make sure none of our people get the virus. How do we do that? We went to the US and we procured some high-quality PCR testing machines from an amazing organisation called Thermo Fisher in New York. They make the best equipment in the world. They are the most accurate test you can get. We secured them, got them out of the US. It was a little bit like a movie, actually, getting the things out. The airlines were shutting down. Donald Trump was saying they shouldn't be leaving, and we got them out, got them into Australia. We set up 3 drive-through facilities in Perth and 7 in regional centres, and we engaged 40 nurses. We brought on 2 world-class labs on board, and we had a capability of testing 10,000 people a day. It is probably the largest and most sophisticated private PCR COVID-19 screening program in Australia, and it was there to test everybody that was going to our mine sites originally. We then expanded that to the mining industry, and we had about 60 mining, oil and gas companies all running through the facility, making sure that everyone got on planes, done so without the virus, which meant that they could go back to their normal rosters. We got our people back to our normal rosters. We turned them off for a couple of weeks and got them straight back. I mean, the worst thing you can do in these situations is have your people away from their loved ones and their families when they're most needed. So we kept them on those rosters. We kept everyone tuned in. We engaged some mental help in the services of Chris Harris that joined us, and we made sure that our people were physically and mentally fit and able to go to work, and that any help their families needed, we were there for it. The government was exceptional in protecting WA from COVID. They eliminated community transmissions. The economy's a powerhouse and life is reasonably normal here in WA. So we put together a little movie that I'll get them to roll now and just show you a little bit of background on what we did during COVID. My main concern was that all of my people kept their jobs so that they could feed their family, pay their mortgage and simply survive. Without that, the whole fabric of our society would have broken down.
The leadership team knew it was going to have a big impact on the way we operated. In the years preceding had been able to build up a strong balance sheet. We were able to make a decision very quickly that we would do whatever we could to protect our people. That this would affect the industry, and we made a decision that we would make available at cost the technology that we were able to secure, because we wanted to protect the whole industry, not just our own employees.
It was all about the logistics from my perspective. The initial challenge was about how we're going to get people in and out of our business, and we can control the site because safety and controlling all the actions around safety is something we do blindfolded every day. But when it comes to the logistics piece, managing people through the airports, trying to get our interstate truck drivers and our train drivers into the business, and then we looked about when we got them back in the business, how are we going to manage them, because they're cross-pollinating with many other businesses as well.
What we did is established a steering committee, which I was the head of, and we had a working committee that reported in through to the steering committee. We had a lot of talented people right from across the business. It was really designing how we'd operate, how we get to site, get on planes, how we communicate. It all changed, so really that steering committee's job was to ensure that we remapped them and communicated effectively, which I think gave everyone, really good confidence that had our people's interest at heart and we could continue to provide ongoing employment.
So I've been doing this for 35 years. Effectively, I've been doing labs, building labs, putting them together in here and overseas. It is about, at minimum, a 3-month process. From making the decision, finding the location, recruiting the staff, getting the analysers, getting the reagent, getting the methodologies worked up, getting your quality systems in place, then you start testing. Chris's initial approach was, can you do it in 7 days, was just like, I've never even conceived the idea that you could do it in 7. We were operational in 14 days.
I started on a Wednesday, we got keys to the lab on a Friday, and pretty much in a week, it was the Easter long weekend, we sort of took that lab from, or a building, sorry, from an empty building to a lab who got its first results out in a week. So that entailed knocking down walls, getting equipment in, building benches, everything. This place was empty, and literally in a week, we were churning out our first results.
There is an intrinsic spirit in MRL, which is, what does it take? We'll get it done. That's driven from the absolute top down, and everyone supports that.
I remember the first two sites that were set up with the Perth Airport and Kwinana, and there was nothing. We had to provide like the coveralls. It's like, where do we find this sort of stuff? So it was just this huge process.
We worked our tail off to make it happen, and we got it done. And MRL, to their credit, they, as I said, they threw everything at it. They threw resources, people, anything we asked of them. We said this needed to be done, or that floor needed to be put there, or we need to move a wall here to make the lab look a certain way. They got in and did it.
We were just totally astounded by their passion for getting this testing up and running so they could make sure that all their workers were safe, their mine sites were safe, families were safe, and that's what just stood out.
We understood, we needed to do something to keep people engaged and entertained, and I guess the best thing that we did, we rolled out the Eagles. They flew to site and they were side by side with us. A lot of the things that they train and do for mental health and wellbeing was something we could really adopt on site.
Once it was announced, a lot of closures going on in the footy industry. We were playing one day, and the next day it was we're in hiatus. So it was a shock to everyone, and then everyone was sort of scrambling as to what's next. And luckily for us, we had a relationship with MRL, and they turned uncertainty into a bit of certainty for us, and provided us an opportunity to work up north. For us to go up there and provide a bit of support, whether it be just having a chat, giving some ideas about general well-being, fitness, mental health, I think the relationship worked really well.
Having the Eagles on site, it did boost morale. You could feel it instantly change. They were prepared to come out and live the FIFO life with us. But not just us on site, we were all talking to our families about it, and our kids about having that support for us on site, and it really did give us something, I guess you could have gave us some hope.
Passionate about what we do from the top to the bottom. We're different. Thanks. It was an extraordinary time. We lived and breathed it every day. But thanks to the staff, they were unrelenting. It didn't matter how many hours, how many days they had to put in, they were there. But look, thankfully, it seems to have left our state, with the exception of those that come in and controlled. So the borders are softening a bit. As I said earlier, I think from our point of view, it's tough for us to get people in and to get our labour in. We've got interstate people, and we've had to put them up in Perth and look after them, and we've got people locked out, which we're doing all sorts of things to get in. We're now paying our people to fly back in. We're paying them to spend the 2 weeks in quarantine and doing all those things just to try and keep our people going. It's not been a cheap exercise, but it's not about that. I think it's about the humanity of being able to keep our workforce. Those people have supported this business a long time. I'm proud to say that we've kept them all intact and their families. So we're backed off on the testing just recently. We're no longer testing 100% of people that go to site. We're randomly testing some of the ones on all of the sites, and just making sure that we're looking out for all those signs that we do. And we're also making sure, obviously, that if WA is relatively free from it at the moment, and if we have an outbreak, we have got everything in place. We've got all our medical staff in place. We've got all that amazing equipment sitting there. Look, I've got to thank also Mel Beecham from Safe Work Labs that you saw on the screen, also Shay Seymour. They were just incredible. I mean, to do things at our speed, I mean, it's not something they're used to. And at the time it normally takes, I mean, the virus would have had a hold of WA. So they learned how to go mining with their labs, and they went along with the flow, and we got it done. I also have to especially thank Stephen Pickering. So he's the Vice President of Thermo Fisher for Australia and New Zealand. He's the guy I rang up and declared amnesty to and said, I've actually bought a whole bunch of equipment out of the States and I've bypassed you. I've got it all over here and we're trying to set it up, and it's got this calibration plate that can't fall below minus 37 degrees C, and we're trying to figure out how to calibrate them. And he said, what are you doing with our machines? How did you get a hold of them? And I said, can't tell you that. I said, I've got a little bit of reagent, but I'm going to need a truckload of reagent. He said, hang on, I'll call you. He called me back in about an hour and he said, if you're doing it for non-profit and you're doing it, as you say, to try and make sure the mining industry stays intact, he said, I'll throw my A-team at you, and he did. And when the whole world was scrambling for reagents, we just had it coming out our ears. We had the latest and the best reagents and as much as we needed, and we were... so that guy was exceptional. If you need testing gear, they're the only game in the world. They're amazing. Highlights for the year. We delivered, obviously, our best result ever. The most important thing, as I said earlier, that we achieved was that we kept everybody safe, we kept everyone employed. We told them to go home and tell their spouses they've got a job. This thing will not reduce their pay. Go tell your husbands and wives you've got a job, the mortgage is paid, the kids are safe, now get back to fucking work because we're going to get into it and get busy and make some money. And we did. We had an amazing year. We went from trying to survive to we absolutely thrived. I mean, we grew the business. We added, more than 500 people we've added to our business in permanent long-term jobs this calendar year alone. That alone has been tough. Our HR team have been bleeding. We've been up on our EBITDA 77%, revenues up 41%, return on investing capital was a whopping 49.6%. We paid $1 for the full year. The mining services production was up 65%, iron ore exports 14.1 million tonnes. The lithium was a sadder story. The COVID kind of destroyed demand. There was a bit of an oversupply when we went into COVID, and then along come all the factories around the world that shut, so demand sort of went through the floor. But in saying that, we kept Mount Marion, it's probably the only mine in the world, lithium mine. It didn't just run at full production, we increased the production and reduced the costs. And our Kemerton plant that we're about to take 40% ownership next year has continued under construction extremely well. So I do want to just acknowledge that two shareholders that have been here from the beginning for every shareholding. Brad Shallard, that supported us from day one and on the vote. I need to just mention him, and supported our stock ever since. David Bowden, David, a true shareholder. He's probably still got all the shares you've ever had, David. Been to every AGM. I mean, that's the sort of shareholders we want in this business. Amazing. Thank you. Just to give you a bit of a snapshot about Mineral Resources, if you do or don't know what we do, we're a diversified mining service business at heart. We're contractors at heart, but we also own a little bit of commodity. We're West Australian based, we're Perth headquartered. Most of our operations are right here in WA. Australia, obviously, it's probably the best place in the world to live. It's politically stable, it's got high quality governments, and the level of social acceptability in the mining industry, particularly in WA, is incredibly high. One of the main reasons it's incredibly high is that there's not a lot of people living out there where we go dig our holes. So most families don't want to go and live in the Pilbara inland where all the dirt comes from. So, and I think people here are very savvy, and we're probably, I would suggest, the best miners in the world in Western Australia. The industry knows how to get things done. They know how to do it safely. They know how to do it efficiently. We know how to control our costs. We know how to do a lot of amazing things. Some great gold mining companies out there. A whole bunch of different things happen right here in WA. We're the biggest in the world in iron ore, the biggest in LNG, and we certainly rank in metals like gold, alumina, lithium, of course, mineral sands. We're very strong. Mineral Resources is regarded as one of the highest quality mining services business in the country. We have a reputation that we not just protect passionately, but we've grown year on year. We work hard on our culture, how we act, how we behave, how we treat the community. All of those things are incredibly important to us, and we've been able to grow that year on year. So we're building a 30 to 50 year business, and we're very strong in a mix of what we do. We're trying to drought-proof the business. So we're into services, commodities, and infrastructure assets. Infrastructure is going to be a big part of our business going forward over the next 3-4 years. That's our biggest focus. Geographically spread on iron ore, we've got a mine in the north and one in the south. We're number 5 in Australia as an iron ore miner. Lithium, again, in the north and the south, 2 different weather climates. We're number 4 in the world as a lithium producer. We have the largest hard rock deposit in the world in Wodgina. We have an exceptional deposit down at Mount Marion out near Kalgoorlie. Our mining services business is significant. We're the biggest crushing contractor in the world. We make more little rocks out of big rocks than anyone else out there makes. We also have all of the other toys that go with it. We're very good on drill and blast and mining, and we own and operate airports. We own our own railway systems. We've got monster road trains. We've got the largest road trains in the world. We're addressing critical risks for our long-term energy security, and we are addressing our carbon footprint. We'll talk a lot more about that going forward. We haven't been vocal on it, but we are certainly all over it. We have scale in mining services, iron ore and lithium. We're a growing organisation that's recognised, and we have a good voice in the mining industry, and it's getting quite respected. Our 20 performance, safety, another great year. As I said earlier, we put on more than 500 new people we brought into our business. It's a tough chore. You're bringing new people in, outsiders. They don't understand how important that safety culture is to us the day they come in. We work hard to make sure that they come in safely, they understand it, they're trained well, they pick up on it. We've got over 3,800 full-time people nowadays. Our safety ranks in the top 10% of the mining industry. In the mining services industry, we're probably in the top 3%. Our lost time injury frequency rate is 0. So to understand that means we haven't, over the last couple of years, had one single person that's had an injury that's caused them to have a full 8-hour shift off work. Extraordinary when you consider the industry we're in. I've mentioned to some of the regulators out there that they have lost time injuries. They're the regulators that sit behind desks and measure our safety. They actually have lost time injuries. And what we call our TRIFR, total recordable injury frequency rate. I have to get my wife to keep reminding me what that means. Thank you, Tia. We're in the bottom quartile of the industry. This is a slide from James. James likes this. It shows our shareholder value creation. Our unique capabilities and business model have created solid shareholder value over the last 15 or 16 years. We've generated high returns. Our return on invested capital has averaged 27% per annum since listing, which is extraordinary. There's only a couple of countries on the ASX that have actually achieved that. Our operating cash flow has grown significantly. 5.8 billion EBITDA has been delivered, and it allows dividends to grow 19% per annum, fully franked. We maintain a very conservative balance sheet. We got out there a little bit a year and a half ago when I was building Wodgina, but it was planned and it was well managed. The market has recognised this in our share price over a long period of time. Our share price has been, I think, fairly well performed over the years. We've had times where it's a little bit softer than I think, and I think probably now we don't get a lot of recognition for those great assets we've got in lithium. I think we're probably more weighted to our mining service than iron ore, but over the next year or two, I think that'll be able to balance and come back. All important on sustainability, a big subject in the mining industry and right across Australia at the moment. I mean, we're of course focused on increasing our diversity across our business. It's tough. We're employing a lot of people in a small population. WA's a huge continent, 2.5 million people, and we're trying to employ a whole range of different people here, and we're competing with a lot of different organisations, but we're doing well. We're moving in the right direction. We're also looking very hard. We've increased what we call our second generation MRL employees. So a second gen person is their mum or dad works for the company. And if they work for the company, they get priority because they've grown up around the breakfast table. They understand the culture and how we work, how we behave. They understand the passion their parents have for the business. So we've added 15 apprentices also this year. We've got 34 in total at the moment on the books and growing, 13 are second generation. We've taken in 44 trainees this year and graduates. 23 of those 44 are second generation. Actually, on the trainees, more than half of those are female. I had the pleasure of going along to a training program we were running a few weeks back, and we had 20 of our young women, next-gen women, in there learning how to drive dump trucks. They'd never been to a mine site before. They're all out there now working on the mines, all except one. One went, this is scary. But the rest of them are still out there, so success rate's very high. Emissions, we've obviously very focused on reducing our emissions. Our prime focus, it's very basic, very simple. We have to reduce the volume of diesel that we're burning. That's our single most important focus. So changing our power stations, changing our trucks, our road trains. As I said earlier, we're probably going to burn in excess of $270 million worth of diesel this year. And when you consider we buy ours for about half the price you guys pay for it on the road, it's an awful lot of diesel. How are we doing that? So all of our power is going to be gas generated. Most of the big ones already are. If they're on the coast, natural gas. If they're inland, we're going to have LNG, which we will create through mini LNG plants. We'll haul them inland. And on the bigger projects I'm going to talk about shortly going forward, both on the coast and inland, we're going to plant farms and acres of solar panels. And we're going to try and run as much of our operation on solar during the day. We're obviously also looking closely at hydrogen. That's a little ways off, but there's an awful lot more focus behind the whole world now, 10 or 20 times more than there was a year ago, on trying to get clean energy to work, and we're on board with it. And our contribution to safety. During COVID, we've kept everyone employed. We've received zero financial benefits from the government. We haven't asked for them and we don't want them. We can look after ourselves, and we do that well. We've increased our payments to the federal and state and local governments. Our total payments over the last 5 years are over $850 million. And we have provided the best testing facilities in the country to keep West Australians' mining and oil and gas industry safe and keep them at work. Business performance, briefly, the mining services, all the sites have delivered strongly. The production's up 65%, EBITDA's up 72%. We've had 2 new contracts and 4 renewed contracts during the year. Customer retention remains extremely high. We operate across 28 sites. Every site that we have out there has met or increased expectations. And our expectations are high. I mean, we push our plants, we push our plants, the tonnes that we expect to deliver, and we focus on them. I know every day, every morning when I wake up, I know what every site's produced, or if there's an issue with any site. Within an hour, if somebody gets hurt, I know, and my senior guys over here, Paul and Mike, will be onto it within minutes. Those things are critical to us. Iron ore exports. It was a record year for our iron ore, mainly thanks to Cooley and getting Cooley up and running. Our revenue per tonne has increased. Obviously, we all know the price of iron ore has gone up, but so too has our all-up CFR unit costs have grown over the last year. A couple of reasons for that is the more you sell it for, the higher the royalties are that we have to pay out. So the royalty costs have gone up. And then Iron Valley, we're getting very deep in the pit out there. Still got a long, long way to go. And we've got wet feet. The water's in and we're pumping water. Lithium prices, as I said earlier, they're down. Mount Marion's reduced operating costs and increased production. Production's up 16%. Wodgina is on care and maintenance, and our Kemerton hydroxide plant, which is being funded and built by Albemarle, is on schedule for commissioning next year. Okay, so where am I going to take the business into the future? We've got some fairly good plans around where we're going. This was a good year. We've got better years to come. We've got some fairly solid plans. We've been working hard on getting agreements in place. We've been getting approvals done. We have assurances from all of the right departments, government, port, landowners, traditional landowners, that these projects that we've got in front of us I'm going to tell you about now are going to work. The strategy is to own and operate long-term sustainable infrastructure. That's where we want to make our money. We are, remember, mining services at heart, first and foremost, but when you have all the infrastructure, you have to have passengers for it. Our most reliable passengers going forward over the next decade are going to be iron ore and lithium. I said, I think at the last AGM, that we thought that we would double our mining services business over the preceding 3 years. We're going to be there in 2. We've had some big gains so far and we've got more coming. We believe without any doubt that over the next 2.5 to 3 years we're going to double the entire MinRes business. So that's doubling in revenue, doubling probably in the number of people we employ, the tonnes we shift, and more importantly doubling the bottom line. As I said, we will build, own, operate infrastructure assets mainly in the north of the state, although we've got some expansion happening down in the Yilgarn, and that's mainly going to run through Port Hedland and Onslow. These supply chains will provide a pathway to market for stranded tonnes and uneconomic deposits, and there are several billion tonnes sitting out in those regions that are stranded. When I say stranded, that means that they've got no way to get them to the coast and get them to market. We'll build private haul roads for these 300-tonne capacity off-highway road trains that we've been developing over the last couple of years. We've actually got the first couple of them out on site now in the Yilgarn, and we've been able to prove that these things are meeting the rate per tonne per kilometre that we expect. So if you compare them to our road trains in the north, hauling down the highway into Port Hedland, these big girls, we have to build our own highways, so dedicated just for the trucks. So then there's no diesel fuel tax, there's no one else on the road. We're about 1/3 of the cost per tonne kilometre as we are on the on-highway trucks. So we're getting down very, very close to the total cost of running a train. If you include the capital for building the track and buying the train, which they never do, we're right down close to that, and we're working on getting the drivers out of these trucks and getting them driverless because there is no one else on the road, and we're just going to try and get rid of that. We'll also build, own and operate our own transhippers in the Port of Ashburton. So the transhippers are basically boats that have got 15 to 18,000 tonne capacity. They just go in circles from shore out to Cape-sized carriers sitting about 20 miles off the coast and load them. It's a very low cost to be able to do that. It's actually, if I can quote you, the cost of doing that out of Onslow is about half the cost of using the Utah Point government-owned port facility in Port Hedland. And once we get them on board the boat, again, the cost of a Cape carrier compared to the mini Capes out of Utah Point is about 60% thereof. So incredibly economic to do what we're going to do. So the Yilgarn hub, just briefly, there's substantial stranded deposits down in the Yilgarn. We're working through, we're developing haul roads down there. We put in about 130, 140 Ks over the last 12 months of haul roads. We got some more to go, but we're going to get it to a consistent run rate. It's got at least a decade in it at about 13 million tonne a year running. Cooley will be doing 9 million tonnes, and the Karina Mine site or infrastructure site is going to be doing 4. We're turning Karina back on. Karina is, if you remember, an iron ore mine we run a few years ago. Incredibly high quality infrastructure assets sitting down there. So the process plant, the camp, airport that'll take bitumised airport that lands jets and automatic train loadout is all coming back online over the next couple of months. So 13 million tonne out of there consistently. Most of that going through Esperance. We're going to get a few of those tonnes probably to go back up through Kwinana so that we can get them on smaller ships and get them up the rivers into smaller process plants in southern China. Utah Point strategy. We've mapped out what we're doing there over the next decade. We're going to be heading up there by about February next year. We're aiming to be around 14 million tonnes a year, consistent run rate. Again, we've got a fairly solid 10-year plan wrapped around that. It's coming out of about 5 deposits at the moment. That may grow to 6 or 7. We have recently acquired a little mine up there called the Wanmana site. We got it from the Australian Aboriginal Mining Corp. They had some unfortunate experience over the last 5 years. They weren't able to get it going with their JV partner. They approached us only a few months ago, and we have put an agreement together with them. We've given them some money. They were getting in serious financial trouble. We bailed them out, funded them with that, and we're going to turn that mine site on, and we'll have first ore in Port Hedland in January. So very favourable outcome with that, and we'll be running at about 5 million tonne run rate out of there initially with quite a good grade, which will add nicely to our Utah blend. And the Ashburton infrastructure development. So fundamentally what we're going to do down there, we're going to build a fully enclosed 350,000 tonne storage facility right on the edge of the ocean in Ashburton, just south of Onslow. We're going to have berthing facilities in there for the transshippers. We're going to have a fleet of 3 to 4 transshippers which we'll purpose build, and we'll deliver them out to the Cape carriers offshore. On the inland, we'll run a couple of 100 kilometres of privately owned haul road. We'll have state-of-the-art accommodation inland. We'll have an airport, and we're going to have a couple of 100 of our next-gen process plants in there, 15 million tonnes apiece, and we will be able to produce a minimum of 25 million tonne a year run rate out of there, and we're aiming to have that running within about 2 years from now. We're well down the path of getting approvals and getting the support from all of the right agencies we need. And then of course power in there, it'll be natural gas out at the port, and it'll be LNG inland to run the mine sites. And then, as I said earlier, we're going to supplement through the day with solar farms, and we're going to keep an eye on other fuels, other green fuels that'll be able to be added as we go by. But I think if we take the easy steps now, get out of as much diesel as we can, get into gas, that's a very quick fix. And then, of course, we are a big supplier to the world of lithium, and we're going to take credit for that because we're saving a lot of carbon credits with that. So if you want lithium, call me and we'll sell you as much as you want. And then Southwest Creek, we've been working on that for a couple of years, and that's 2 Cape carrier berths. They were allocated to what they called back in 2008 to the juniors. They all disappeared except us. We're the only organisation left that meet the criteria under the policy, and we're the only emerging iron ore producer that has the balance sheet and the financial clout to be able to deliver those. We are waiting for final sign-off. It's all on the Minister's desk, so we hope to be able to get that in the foreseeable future. I think the election may interfere with that, but those 2 berths have a 50 million tonnes of channel capacity in the Port Hedland Harbour, which is the biggest bulk harbour in the world, and it'd be a nice place for us to have that asset. So we're looking forward to getting that secured in the near term. So that kind of wraps it up. I mean, the lithium business, as I said, it's sort of the poor man at the moment. I mean, a couple of years ago, we were all standing here and applauding and doing bows because we were heroes, but now we're in the gutter with it, but not totally, because if you look down the track over the next 10, 15 years, if you have a look, I've just noticed the countries out in Europe that are saying come 2030 and 2035, there will be no more combustion engines on the road. So we're going to have to power them somehow. Right now, lithium is one of the front runners of it. You can feel the demand is incrementally coming back now month by month. And as I said, we have a significant lithium business. Our business probably sits in the top 4 lithium businesses in the world. The prices have declined over recent times, but we've reacted with that well. We've continued with Mount Marion. I mean, we've really pulled the costs down there. Our production this year is probably going to be up around the 475,000 tonnes mark. We're going to be up around 20%, and our costs are going to be down at least 10 to 15%, and we're probably going to do better than that. So good outcome with that. We'll leave Wodgina on a care and maintenance regime. Wodgina is a state-of-the-art plant. It's a big, robust plant. It's got a naturally gas-fired power station. When we turn that thing on, it's probably capable of better than 1 million tonnes a year run rate that it can pop out, but we can turn that on incrementally. It has 3 trains. We can economically bring on a train at a time. So, I mean, that big girl's sitting ready to go. Kemerton is looking extremely good. Albemarle are delivering a 50,000 tonne plant down there. When they commission it, they then give us our 40% shareholding, and we join in as a JV partner. They tell us that they have all of that product taken care of. They're in charge of the marketing, and they say that they have all that spoken for. So about June next year, Train 1 comes online. About October, November, Train 2 comes online. These things take some time to settle in. They're chemical plants, so it's probably going to take a year or so for it to gradually build up to full nameplate. But again, a great asset and a great partner, as is Ganfeng. So that's gone well. Just before I wrap up, big thanks to Diane and the team for putting all this together. She puts up with me every 6 months. This is the tough one for us, so she's probably taken a couple of tablets this morning, but she does a bloody good job. Thank you. Russell James, our rock star from New York, and his wife Ellie Franco. Russell captured all of the COVID moments all through the COVID. Ellie and Russell have been stuck in Perth for months, so we've had them out round photographing all of our sites and capturing all of these great moments so that we can try and record what happened. We didn't know what was going to happen, but all the pictures you see are, they would normally be on some magazine in New York or somewhere on the front of Swimsuit Illustrated, and we may even get one of our plants there. But Russ and Ellie, thank you for everything you've done. The Eagles, thank you for the Eagles. They brought some normality to our sites. Peter Rosethorn brought some humour to us, and we had all this engaged. Thanks very much, Mark and Paul and Mike, and the teams, and how you drove your teams and how you got the results that you drove this year, both culturally and safety, and the profitability for our shareholders is highly acknowledged. So thanks to all of you, and we're open for questions. If I've left anything out, now's a good time. Look, I've got a couple of written questions I'll just cover quickly. Someone has asked us, why isn't the income from mining ore separately produced? The answer is it is. It's separate. It's in our financial statements. So if you go to our annual report and you turn to page 85 and you have a look at note 3, you'll find the information you need there. Has there been any study into even time rosters? I'm thinking this is one of our people that's got shares. Of course there has. I mean, we look at the rosters that we run for our people. We look at that from a mental health point of view, and we look at it from a financial point of view and a cost, and we look at it from a financial point of view for our people. The vast majority of our people that we have, and I'd say the vast majority, like 90% plus, like the rosters that we run. But in saying that, probably going forward when we develop these larger sites, and the first one's going to be running within a couple of years, we'll probably be looking at different rosters on that site so that we can have a mix, and people that want to go to even time roster, they get paid a bit less, but they get home a bit more. So yes, the answer is we're addressing that, and we're going to come up with some good solutions. We have some other interim solutions in between as well that we're working on, and we're also looking at a whole range of other benefits that we can include into the packages. One thing we have learned out of this is that how we look after our people today is extremely different to what it was 9, 12 months ago. I mean, how we think about their health, how we think about their physical and mental health, as well as their safety, is very different. We've got 40 nurses on board now. We're going to keep them. We have them out on our sites. We have them in town, and we're looking at the wellbeing and health of our people. When we move into our new office that we're currently fitting out in Osmond Park, we've got 15,000 square metres of office up there, and it's going to be state-of-the-art Google style. We're going to have our own doctors on board, so we do all of our own medical work in-house, and we can be able to get our people to medical attention immediately. So the last question I have is, what will the share price be in 2021? So we're not allowed to answer that, but if I could, I probably wouldn't be here. So that's pretty much it. Has anyone else got any questions, or did I do a good job on delivering all the information you need? Put your hand up.
Thank you. Look, I commend you for your impressive growth this year and your COVID response. I think all that's great. I'm interested in a couple of things. I have a couple of questions. The first is about, given what we've seen with Rio Tinto, I'd just like you to talk a bit more to native title and how that affects mineral resources. The other question is just about markets, given the increasing awkwardnesses with the Chinese government. How exposed are shareholders or mineral resources to the Chinese market? Thank you.
Yeah, look, two very good questions. Looking after the assets of our Indigenous folk, I think, is something that the mining industry has done extremely well for a long, long time. I think, as Ben Wyatt would clearly say, there's a lot of areas in there for improvement, and as an organisation, as a body, the mining industry is working with the government now to try and fill those gaps, and we certainly recognise there's a lot of things that should have and can be done to make sure those sorts of issues don't happen. And look, I mean, to be clear, I mean, it's one issue that's happened. It didn't happen on purpose. It was just a series of events that brought that to bear, but we want to make sure that that can never happen again. We have 14 S18s that exist. We treat them as we always have. We're not doing anything different because I think we were doing enough. We make sure that we collaborate with the local Indigenous people and with the traditional landowners and those regions that we're in. We make sure we get the right people out there on the ground, and we get the right answers and the right conclusions, and then we make sure that we do exactly as we say and we deliver. I mean, that's part of the reputation of our business. It's not just delivering with traditional landowners, it's also delivering with station owners, the local communities. I mean, I personally have been up to Onslow in the last few weeks. I've met with the traditional owners, I've met with the farmers, I've sat out on their balcony and had tea with them and spoke about what we'll do. And I go, these are the commitments from the top of the company, we will deliver. So those are really critical to us, and it doesn't matter who it is, it's anyone in the community has to have that same respect treated to them. In terms of China, I have personal views on how we should treat our trading partners, but I mean, look, they are not looking at Australia as one of their closest companions at the moment. I think we're fortunate. West Australia has always had the highest respect. Our Premier here visits China once or twice a year, as does some of his key staff, and continually tells them how important our trade is between each of us and the relationship that we've built over many years. So it's fragile at the moment, there's no doubt about that. Are we at risk? Of course, there's always a risk. Australia's lucky in the sense it's sending out about 850 million tonne a year up to China. They need that, but that's no good reason for us to have the relationship we've got. In terms of our lithium, we've got all of our Mount Marion lithium going to China. That's jointly owned by a great Chinese company, Ganfeng. So they take it to China, they downstream it in China. I think that's fairly rock solid, and our partners with Albemarle, American of course, and we're aiming to try and process a lot of our product down through the Kemerton plant that we're building, and we're probably looking at building some other plants in other regions. So one of the things in our lithium business we're looking to do is, in the immediate term, we're looking to be able to develop more hydroxide, and we pretty much want all our spod to go through our own hydroxide plants, whether that be JV owned with Ganfeng or Albemarle. But there is no doubt that if we were selling a product to China at the moment that they could get from 2 or 3 other countries, we would probably be the last in line. Anyone else? Anyone out there know what the share price is going to be next year? Chris, you continue to run a fantastic business. Thank you for that. FY20 and the manner in which you supported your staff and stakeholders through COVID-19 with regard to development of Kamina and Bungaroo, are there any efficiencies available to MRL for shared port access at Mardi? I'm thinking that someone out there that's in the salt business has sent that through. No, look, there is the answer to that is no. I mean, we're fixed on Onslow for transshipping because the facilities that are available there, we have a clear understanding of what the capital cost is to get out of there and what the operating cost is. But no, look, it's Mardi is too difficult in the sense of being able to get there with the product and be able to build the facilities we need and run the tonnes we need. Oh God. Chris, last year you said I was keen to get an EV in the garage. Did you find time for that? Can we share? Okay, so the answer to that is I did say last year that I should be driving an electric vehicle, and I'll be heavily criticised when I get home because I've been encouraged to get one. I just haven't had time to get one with all the stuff we're doing, and that's a poor excuse because we've actually got a lot done this year, but I just haven't bought an electric vehicle. But when I'm standing here next year, I commit that I will have one. 2. Anyone else? Is Albemarle financially able to complete Kemerton and without further dollars input from Min? They are very sound on financially to be able to finish not just Kemerton, they're also building in Chile. They had the money set aside from it. They're an awfully well-managed organisation, and they've got a very solid board behind them and management team, but yeah, they need no help from MinRes. Okay, so at the last year's AGM, Mr. Wade, you spoke of a choice between diesel and gas, and you hope that someone will come up with an emissions-free fuel source. With some of our peers like Fortescue making major commitments to renewable energy being green hydrogen, will Mineral Resources consider its plans to move into gas development? We're there. We have been in ahead of FMG. We have some great land up in The Perth Basin, we were planning on drilling that out, and a drill hole up there is about 15 million. Our person in charge of our gas is here, Shelley Robinson, sitting over in the back, who's done an amazing job for us. And so we are going to, sometime in the next 7 months, 8 months, our aim is to drill a hole. It's about a $15 million hole. We're in a highly prospective area. If we don't find it there, we're going to drill another one. We intend to own our own natural gas, and we'll be able to make sure we know what that cost is fixed for the next 30, 40 years out in our business. We've spent some money on hydrogen, and we're doing, and Shelley has done a whole bunch of studies on exactly what we're going to build in terms of solar up and right through the Pilbara, what we're adding, and she's adding solar as we speak down in the Yilgarn at Mount Marion. So we are full on doing it. We're just not very good at being able to share that information, but I promise you within the next 6 months we'll get a much larger plan out on what we're doing about our carbon footprint and what we're doing about our reduction in fuels that are not conducive with our planet. Are we looking to expand our lithium footprint through acquisition? We keep an eye out, not just for lithium. Look, we keep an eye out for the commodities that are of interest to us. So if there was something that come along, we would certainly have a look at it. I'm not saying we're actively out there looking to buy lithium at the moment, but we're certainly actively looking at how to turn our spod into hydroxide. We're looking at that jointly with our partners, and we've been working on that for 3 or 4 months, and we hope to get a result in that shortly. We have an awful lot of lithium in the ground. I mean, you've got to remember with Wodgina, we've got something like 270 million tonnes in the ground, and we're not even halfway down that pit. I mean, we were going to drop a drill rod a kilometre or 1.2 k's down. We're only 500 metres down in the pit, so we have more lithium than God, I think. Okay, in the annual report, the synthetic pilot plant we developed successfully a run rate of 96% pure graphene, exceeding initial expectations. Our next steps to build a commercial plant? No. At this stage, we're not going any further with that plant. We need to do more R&D to be able to upscale it, and the feeling we're getting is that there's a lot of people out there experimenting with this sort of product, and with the time that we got on our hands and the commitments we got on our hands, we just aren't able to get at all of the things. The other one that we're not getting at, of course, that no one's raised is the carbon fibre trays. I mean, we've farmed them across to our original partner. He's working on them. We're working on some other carbon fibre products, and we think we're close to turning out our first product, which is probably a bigger cash saver to us than the dump truck trays were. But again, it just comes down to the resources that we've got. We can only do so much inside our business. Someone from Melbourne would like to know if I consider a sponsorship for the Richmond Tigers. Is there anyone in this room, anyone at all, that would support that? No, you're dead. Okay, so I've got someone here asking about our emissions and intensity and what we're doing about it, and when we're going to publish something about it. I will promise we will commit to publishing something quite significant on all of that within the next 6 months. I mean, as I say, we've been working through a whole range of areas, and at the same time we're trying to get projects on the board that we're going to develop. Now that we know what we're going to develop, we'll figure out how we're going to power them. So we do have a good plan on how we're going to reduce our emissions, so give us an opportunity to do that. So energy resources, that's Shelley, who is developing not just our gas assets in the Perth Basin. We've looked at, we've put in other exploration permits or opportunities we've been looking at, but she's also very engaged in all of the power that the business is either running currently, and she runs it, or what we intend to run. So we will have a fairly solid plan on that, Shelley, within the next 6 months. I mean, we're pretty much there now, but she's got quite a team working on it. But we're close. How concerned am I about China owning iron ore mines in Africa? Not at all. I mean, it's a given that they're going to. They do have ownership in Guinea, in Simandou. They will develop them. There's no question about that. They are very high quality grade deposits. You know, they're at 66% plus. They're also challenging. They're in a third world country, and I mean, don't need to be concerned about that. China has capability of building pretty much anything anywhere. I mean, they are very well versed at how to fund and work with Chinese governments and African governments, and they can build in those zones. They can just pick up a whole bunch of their people and take them. They will build mines at Simandou, and they'll bring them on board. It may take them 5 or 6 or 7 years to do that, but they will bring them on board. There's no doubt about that. But, you know, if they can get something running and they've got 100 million tonnes coming out of there, that's a reasonable challenge, but they'll achieve it. But I think that we've got a reasonable degree of safety in terms of MinRes for the next decade. Okay, so that was what I was talking about earlier. So the UK's just recently come out and said they're going to ban combustion engine, diesel and petrol engines off the roads. What's the impact of that? I hope it's huge. I hope that they just want to burn lithium, only run batteries, no hydroxide required. I think the fact that that sort of news flow is coming out, I think that's a combination of people waking up in the middle of COVID and going, we've got no pollution. I mean, they turned off all of the factories that were creating pollution all through Europe, everywhere, and everyone went, you can actually live in a pollution-free world. So I think there's a lot more focus on that now, and there's a lot more drive. Obviously, you can feel the pressure now. I mean, if someone said to me 3 or 4 years ago, there's a cheap coal mine going, I'd go, wow, we're in there. But today, you just wouldn't want to walk past one. So we're all into clean fuel. We've just got to find how we get there. There's not a lot of options at the moment. Given a year, 18 months, there will be. Are we looking to increase our lithium asset reserve? Yes, we are. We are through exploration. We are putting a plan in place right at the moment, and we intend to be drilling holes this financial year and trying to grow that lithium resource that we got. I think we're about done. Anyone want to go and eat some of the amazing food we got out there? Please don't waste it.
Just one final question, Chris. Last year you spoke quite positively about the...
Sorry, you need to talk into the microphone so I reach coast.
Sorry about that. Yes, last year you spoke quite positively about the BOSS holding system for stranded sites. Any update on that?
Yeah, well, so again, with the BOSS, we had some issues with it, and there were issues around fatigue on the track. At the same time, we were running side by side with this road system that we've been working on. So the road system that we have is about identical in terms of cost per tonne per kilometre, but it's much more portable. So to go build a road, a bitumen road is substantially less in capital costs, and the operating costs on these things. So right now the trucks today run on diesel. We think when we put the first big ones on the road in Ashburton, we think that we should be able to run them on, worst case scenario, on gas, but maybe on hydrogen. We think within 2 years we can absolutely take the drivers out of them. So these things are much more portable. So I can put these things down in the Yilgarn, and I've got a couple down there now. I can put them in the Ashburton. We're going to do something very similar out of Port Hedland. So to move these big girls around is very easy, very flexible, and it's the lowest cost form of transport. And we put quite a lot of effort into that BOSS system. It looked promising, but we had 2 independent experts that we had from internationally, and neither of them could find the solution that we were looking for. So we parked that. So that was narrow gauge. So we're talking about 600 mil centre to centre on the rails. If we went out wider, we went to about the standard narrow gauge rail line that we could make work. But then the costs got beyond these road trains that we've got. I think we're done. Okay. Thanks to my board. Thanks for joining us. Virtual board and present board. Thanks to my management, and thanks to all the shareholders and all the support that we've got over the last 12 months and where we're going. Thanks to Bell Potter. Thanks to RSM. Thanks to all of the service companies that work closely with us during the year and help our business to get to where it is. So it's been a great year, but we've got a couple of better ones coming. So thanks, everyone.